Today's show is brought to you by tintackers.com, your source for sweet aluminum beer signs from your favorite craft breweries. Tintackers.com carries hundreds of official brewery signs you can choose from to enhance your brew room, bar, or lounge area. Make your walls happy by visiting tintackers.com today. Use our promo code HOMEBREWER to receive $10 off your first order over $30. That's tintackers.com, promo code HOMEBREWER.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Adding taps to a Kegerator system, what's a vorlauf, MFL versus barb disconnects, and when to recirculate. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 229. Hello and welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, you can go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or now you can call or text them in to 325-305-6107. I am your host, Joshua Stubing. Today, I am joined by the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com, Mr. James Carlson over my shoulder, as well as the President and Chief Keg Washer of kegconnection.com right down there, Mr. Todd Burns. Gentlemen, welcome. No more. Oh, hold on. Shiza. I'm so sorry. I mean, we're still recording. I just had y'all muted. Par for the course, as Todd would tell me.
I'm doing good, Josh.
Yes, I'm doing well. So, you know, the one time I wanted you to ask me how I was doing, you didn't, because I told you not to ask me anymore.
That's 2 weeks in a row.
I'm actually doing great because I went in my one of my bedrooms in my barn today at 68 degrees. And I have 30 gallons of beer fermenting in there in buckets.
Yay.
Beautiful thing.
Nice to see beer fermenting again, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a beautiful thing. Let's segue that into our first part of small talk. I had a blast up there at headquarters. We had 2 full brew days, and we accomplished a couple things. One, Todd, we didn't live stream it because I was on my own, and I didn't trust Todd to manage the equipment, and I didn't want to look like an idiot. And Todd gets
or actually even touch the equipment.
I didn't want you to touch the equipment. That is true.
Right.
But I did a brew day by myself. My first one.
Did a good job, by the way.
Thank you. You were only there for a little bit. You were there long enough to see me and Todd.
I was there a pretty good long while.
You were there long enough to see me and Todd almost go blow to blow. I would have beat him up. He's old and crippled. But I have to admit, I was very intimidated, but brewing on the 3-vessel system, the Brautag that we've been working on, was very fun. It was a ton of fun. I'm a believer in being able to do it on my own. I mean, me and my dad always brew our brew days together anyway, and that's how it'll be for the foreseeable future to one of us croats with the way I abuse my body. I'm not sure which one of us is going first, but I am very much looking forward to doing electric brewing in that volume too. Todd, you're not kidding when you always give me flack like it's not that much more work to do 15 than a 5. You're right. It really isn't.
No, it's the same amount of work. I mean, I think it's, in some ways, I think it's less work than doing a 5 on some of the other systems. I mean, I don't know. I just like the flow of that Herm system. I like the way that and the consistency. And the only thing that may take a little longer is heating up all that water. But we've kind of solved that problem because what we do is we heat it up the night before. So when we start in the morning, it's almost to temperature. We just have to bring it up the rest of the way. So
yeah, what a great method. I didn't realize how effective that is. And
until you lost that $5 bet, you mean?
Yeah, I did lose that $5 bet. That wasn't recent though. That was a few.
No. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, I haven't lost.
I tried to do another one, but he wouldn't follow.
It's true. Yeah, fool me once, something. Shame on somebody. I'm not going down that rabbit trail. Am I right? But anyway. But anyway, we did. I had a blast, and then we filmed James brewing on the Brautag pretty much all day yesterday. I didn't leave town till 8 p.m.
Wow!
I know, and then I got home.
home late
at midnight. Yeah.
Wow.
And then my wife and kids and everyone's up at 5:15 getting ready for school. And my 4-year-old, like, Daddy. It's like, you're home, Daddy, you're home. I was like, oh, I
miss
home.
that.
So I'm caffeined up. I'm ready to go today. But the brow tag, it was fun stuff. We're looking forward to having more information out in the near future. Speaking of my pop, I just mentioned him. It's his birthday. Happy birthday, Pop.
Oh, happy birthday.
Him and my brother share a birthday, and it's not one of those redneck hillbilly kind of things. Like, they're just born on the same day, different years, obviously. I think my brother's
That's
39.
so weird because my dad and brother share a birthday.
No, they don't. Do they really?
Yeah, they both were born on the same day, 25 years apart. I think I've actually mentioned that before.
I think my brother and my dad are 25 years apart.
Hey, my brother and I were born on the same day.
At the same time.
15 minutes apart.
Oh, 15 minutes? Yeah.
No.
Which one's the older brother?
John.
John's your older brother.
He will tell you.
Yeah.
That's the first thing he says.
Is it really?
I'm the oldest.
Is it really?
Been that way since he was a little kid, since he was old enough to talk.
Y'all are twins. That's hilarious, but I'm older. Oh, that's great.
Couldn't help but throw that in.
I love that kind of jabbing. That seems like a twin kind of thing. My brother, I think, is 39. My dad, I think, is 62. I don't keep up with age very well, but happy birthday, Pop. He watches the show.
Yep, good guy.
I've been trying to get him to join the still currently named Super Duper Homebrew Club at the top level.
Yeah, everybody's on pins and needles.
Which is now my segue to the next part. Todd, we've got 1 week to go. How are the submissions for the renaming contest for the Super Duper Homebrew Club?
We've gotten a lot of submissions. A lot of people are sending ones in that are maybe trying to be as cute or cuter than Super Duper Homebrew Club, but I was looking for something maybe a little more serious. But we've gotten, I will say this, I think we've gotten 3 that I really like. And I know we got one that you like a lot. But since you're not making the decision, I guess it doesn't matter. But,
Yeah, it was the super duper homebrew club. That's my.
I love some of the joke ones, though. I feel bad because all of the joke ones are at your expense, Josh.
Yeah, people are, I will say that. People, y'all are too comfortable. Like, total strangers giving me flack. I was going to say the cuss word. Giving me flack. I'm like, wait a second. I don't know you. What is this? Todd, you rib me so much, they feel comfortable ribbing me as
I know.
well.
I feel bad about it.
No, you don't. You liar. People, and someone said something too one time to James, like, oh, the way you'll treat Josh. And I was like, well, James doesn't treat me bad at all. It's all Todd. James is way overly
James is
nice.
very nice.
He's way more nice. At least
What little they know. They don't work around me every day, so we'll leave them to their illusion.
Yeah, we'll just the illusion of the show. But for right now, it is the Super Duper Homebrew Club, and you can join at homebrewhappyhour.com/club. Right now, the only way of joining at any of the tiers actually is still through Patreon at patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. And that brings me to the next part, which is our recipe kits for the month of May. First off, I can't believe that it's already May.
Yeah, heat's coming.
Oh my gosh, it is coming. It was like 90 something on Monday, wasn't it?
Yeah, 95.
And then it was like 70 and perfect on Tuesday. Texas weather. But so our recipes for the month of May are the lemon shandy or an Irish red. I don't believe we've offered either one of those since the launch of the club in October 2019 or September 2019. But I know, and Joe has told me that both of those recipes are solid. I think he's brewed them both. Have y'all brewed a lemon shandy before? Wheat beers aren't really my thing, but this clone kit is apparently very popular. Have you brewed a shandy, Todd?
I have not.
Have you had a shandy?
I'm not a big fan of the shandy beers, but why I hadn't brewed it.
I think it's appropriate for the weather coming up, and a lot of people are very big on these wheat beers. I was gonna do the lemon drop pills. I think we might do that next month because that's
a good one for summer.
And we've done that already, and it was very well received. So, I
love that beer.
Even Lorena liked it.
Yeah, she basically said lemon drop hops. Not a fan. Not going to like this beer. Tasted it, and she was like, Okay, I like this beer.
She drank. That was at Homebrew.
That's awesome.
That was at HomebrewCon 2019, and we shared a booth with Brewer's friend, our friend Lorena, the best person in the industry. And
She's super cool.
She's
My new goal is to brew a beer with fuggles in it.
she's gonna
Buggles and lemon drop hops.
oh my gosh! Please,
You hear that, Lorena?
please do that. Yeah,
Thank you.
James, come up with that recipe: a lemon drop ESB, and that doesn't sound good at all.
It does really doesn't.
Nuts and gum.
Yeah, exactly.
I think of the Simpsons episode.
It tastes like a lemony earthworm. It's going to be great. So, anyways, you do have you could join our club again. Currently, still named the Super Duper Homebrew Club at homebrewhappyhour.com/club. If you're listening to this right now, I'm going to send emails out between today, Thursday the 6th, and tomorrow the 7th to existing members with your login credentials so you can get this stuff ordered and make your recipe choice and all that. And then people are asking me how it works because we usually announce the recipes at the beginning of the month, and then they're like, oh, it takes y'all like till the end of the month basically to ship it. Imperial wants to ship us the absolute freshest patch they can. And so they want an exact count. So the earlier you get your submission in and we get all the counts in, the sooner we can give Imperial what we need. Which, by the way,
we could start shaming people in the club that don't get their submissions in fast.
We could everybody's not getting the recipe till
because of Frank. Yeah. It's all because of Frank.
But that I just wanted to put that out there because I've private messaged people who ask me, and they're all very nice, and no one's ever been upset about it. But I wanted to get that out there because sometimes there is a big discrepancy between we're announcing it. It's because again, Imperial's like, let us know when the count's in, or at least a majority count is in, so that way we can give you the absolute. They want to make sure you're brewing with their freshest patch. They don't send us like second patch or almost. They pack it and then they send it to us. That's how good
that's true.
The Imperial sponsorship is to us. So if you're in the club, it's to your advantage to enter in your choices as soon as you can enter them in. And then speaking of sponsors, my last small talk thing I'll say, this whole month is brought to you by tintackers.com. Use our promo code homebrewer at tintackers.com and get $10 off your first purchase of $30 or more. I promise you it'll be there are the 10s on Todd's.
Yep. Well, there's the my wall of tin tackers.
And I promise
a huge table of them over here that I haven't quite gotten over to my barn yet. We won't show that. I promise you it'll be easy to spend $30 on tintackers.com. Not because they're expensive, but because you're going to want everything. You're going to see all the signs and you're going to want to order them. They're very cool metal signs. They do a good job. We have we work with them all the time on stuff. Our homebrew, the one behind Todd's head, again, I've said before, that's a tintacker.com product. So we're very happy. Jen, who runs it over there, great person to work with. She's fun. She'd be fun to have on the show, but I don't think she wants to be on the show. A lot of people we work with are wonderful in the industry, and we're like, oh, let's get you on the show. I'm like, look over there, and then they run away. She's not really. She's not a home brewer, I don't believe.
That's what I mean. Yeah, she was like, I just make it for the craft breweries and things, but I don't brew myself. But we could change that. But anyway, that's all the small talk I have. Unless y'all want to mention, if I don't think we have anything else. The renaming is going to happen next week. I forgot to say that. So one final week. Todd, are you going to make it a surprise? Or are you going to let me know before the show starts? Are we going to do you're going to do the reveal on next week's episode, or we give me a heads up so I have stuff ready for it?
No heads up, no.
Okay, well then here's what you have to do, since you need to make sure you have the name picked out, the person who picked it, so that we can announce that as well and make sure they reach out to you for their recipe. Deal? Yeah. Okay, do whatever you want. You're in charge. You write the bills. I'm moving on. We have 4 questions for this week's episode. The first one, I'm excited. It's a voicemail from our good friend Danny. Really nice guy. I'll let y'all listen to it. Here's Danny using our Hotmail line at 325.
And let's see if you can guess where he's from.
Yeah. 325-305-6107. Here's Danny.
Hey guys, how are you? This is your buddy Danny, the Irish guy from Ireland living in New York. So I've got a really simple, straightforward question for you guys, I think. I started brewing back in September, 5-gallon batches, and straight away started using your flow control system. I currently have the V3S, and it's brilliant. I love it. Right now, I have the Fat Tire clone on tap. I've got lemon drop pills doing the diacetyl rest, and I have the Kolsch, True to Style Kolsch. I'm brewing that this weekend. So it looks like I'm going to need to put a second tap in my kegerator. So, simple question. What do I need to extend my setup to put a second tap on my system? I want to stick with the V3S because that thing works awesome. So what do I need? Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Danny, thank you for submitting the question.
He's so cool.
Yeah, and he's
Good
very
guy.
active in our homebrew club thing, and he's also on our social media. He's very active. We really appreciate Danny.
Great guy.
A couple of things. One, love the accent, man. Where'd you learn it?
Love it.
That was great. But
I think it's so funny because you have the transcript, and the words are completely different than what he said.
I wasn't going to say that.
Yeah. So you didn't retype it. You somehow Google converted it or something,
did.
right?
I used Google Voice's automatic transcript. That's why I told James before you hopped on. I was like, "Oh yeah, I just copy and pasted the transcript that they did. I don't even double check it because I'm listening to what he's saying." You're right. It's they think you're saying V3S.
Well, the funniest part was the first sentence. This is your body, Danny, the Irish guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh no, that's my new body."
Hey man,
transcript.
when you look at our downloads, we have almost 1,000 downloads from people in Ireland, all across Ireland. Obviously, the vast majority, thousands of thousands, are in North America, but then Ireland and Australia is surprisingly large. But anyways, let's get to his question. First off, I had to look it up. It's not a V3S, actually. Right, James?
No, it's he originally had ordered an X1 flow control, which is our entry level. That's the faucet you see at Twin Peaks. But he upgraded to an X1 stainless steel. So it's the exact same faucet, but the body is made out of stainless steel versus composite.
That
plastic. Yeah.
And because when he said flow control, I was like, wait a second, that can't be the V3S. I use V3Ss and I use V2Gs still, which are fantastic forward sealing faucets. Oh yeah, the bent nozzle.
That's a V3S.
It is with that bent nozzle to make it look like my V2Gs. I love that design. But yeah, you also have the X1, I'm assuming, in hand. I think you showed it to me earlier. Or
I've got the plastic version. But I don't.
We've talked about these faucets on the show before. What I love about the X1s, they're complete flow control at very affordable price. Like it's a great, like you said, entry into flow control. And I say entry, as long as you take care of them, they'll last you forever. So
they're a commercial grade faucet. So parts are always available. You never want to throw it away. Contact me if you need parts, and we can get you fixed up through a distributor.
James will talk himself out of a sale. He's done it before. He will. And no, I don't need to upgrade you. I'll do this. So you don't.
Well, I mean, that's the way I would expect somebody to do me.
Exactly.
I try to reciprocate.
Absolutely. The next point I want to touch on for his question. First off, that's a lot of good beer he's got. Speaking of the lemon drop pills, that's funny that we mentioned it earlier. I didn't realize I forgot that was in his question. Adding a tap, Todd, is as easy as, first off, what depends on the solution. If it was a tower, if it has the room in the cylinder, they have add-ons for that solution. But if it's
I'm assuming he didn't really mention that, but you could always replace the tower. They're not terribly expensive for the shell, or you could put an extension on it. I'm sorry, James, I cut you off though. What were you?
Oh no, that's all right. I had actually talked to him. He was needing some help on the flow control faucet itself, and I think he's got a Keezer.
Okay, good.
Well, that makes it way easier then, right?
That makes it a lot easier. So with a Kegerator, all you got to do is split up your gas. And however, I'll make it more complicated. You may want to think about, is this the only tap you're going to add? Could you possibly add more taps in the future? Because when you go from a single tap to an air distributor, a two-way air distributor is not that much less than a three-way or a four-way, and it's a lot more expensive, or not a lot more, but it's more expensive to try to upgrade it again later. So if you think you're going to expand, go ahead and buy the number of ports that you think you'll need in an air distributor, and you can use 2 because they have shutoffs on them, and you never have to use additional ones. But if you think you might use them, I'd go ahead and spend a few extra dollars to do that. Another thing you could do if you have additional ports like that, you can always run an extra line that's longer that you can pull out of the Keezer. You don't even have to drill a hole or anything. I mean, I drilled a hole in the side and mine's coming out the side, but you could even just shut the lid on it partially and have a longer line come out that you can force carbonate with. So that's something a lot of people like to do when they're in there doing the lines already. There's obviously on mine, it's a dual body, so I have 2 different pressures, but you don't have to do that. You can just have one regulator, an air distributor. When you're force carbonating, you turn the 2 off that are going to your kegs in your Keezer, and then pop up the pressure so you can force carbonate it, turn it back down, and turn that valve off and turn the other 2 valves back on. So there's a lot of things you can do there, Danny, to improve your system while you're already making this upgrade. So on the liquid side, it's also pretty straightforward because the liquid side is self-contained. In other words, you're not having to add to anything else. All you're doing is buying another shank, another beer line, and another disconnect. It goes through a hole in the Keezer. You plug it into the keg, and you're done. So there's not much to it's not like the gas where you're sharing things. With liquid, you're not sharing. It's one keg to one line, so it makes it pretty easy.
And y'all kind of go over that in a multitude of videos we've done. The Keezer build from last year's HomebrewCon is one of the more recent ones where y'all talk about options and expanding or deciding, like you said, Todd, if at all possible, future-proofing yourself by going, I know at some point I'm going to have 4 taps. So I get my 4-way air distributor right now, or I get the secondaries, or I plan for that. Or you know what I mean? Like, you're making plans. Proper planning prevents
piss poor performance.
Piss poor, rabbit trail, sofa quarterback. I forget all the ones I mess up. Yes, I'm reiterating.
Proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance. I knew
there was another P I missed.
One of those things my dad used to tell me constantly when I screwed up as a kid. So.
My dad would always say, "No, hold the flashlight over here, idiot. No, over here." Nah, just go get your mom. I like expanding because that means people are brewing more. Like when someone asks these kinds of questions, that's always a good thing. It adds to, like, I always joke that this is an addiction, right? And like having one tap, I had one tap in my house for the longest time. It didn't last long. I almost immediately upgraded the tower to a 2 faucet. It's at my pop's now, but it was like having one, even just beverage, whether it was the just carbonated water or beer, that's not enough, man. Once you're able to expand, you kind of want to. But the good thing is for Danny, it is very easy or very straightforward to expand. I think you also covered it on a very old Keg Connection video, Todd, about expanding your CO2 manifold if he had to do it that way, because it is possible to get a 2-way right now. And in 2 years or 1 year or 3 years for old Danny, if he wanted to expand even on that existing one, he could do that as well, right? Like, absolutely,
yeah. It's got a plug on the end, and it's a standard 1/4-inch male pipe thread fitting. Although it's female, but you would put a male on it, and then you could go to an additional air manifold, or you could just put a valve in there. So you can always go from a 2 to a 3 by putting a valve. If you want to go to a 2 to a 4, you can screw another air manifold on the end of it.
Yeah, most of this stuff, I don't know. Would you say, James, modular is the right word to say? Because a lot of this stuff, expandable for sure. A lot of kegging.
Yeah, or modular. I would take that the same way.
Right, yeah. Where
scalable.
A lot of equipment, especially the stuff, and there's a question coming up, their third question, where we'll kind of go into that as well on this question. But on the draft side, most components are very scalable. You're sometimes most of the time, you're only limited by the space of your vessel, like your fridge or your freezer. That's the limitation. But if you have the space, expanding an existing system is pretty straightforward. straightforward. And I know on Kegerator.com, there's a whole section for liquid and gas line expansion kits where if it's a teaser, it's a shank, it's the nut, the line, and whatever connection you need, ball lock, pin lock, or if it's a Sainty commercial. So it's very straightforward, usually very affordable. And as always, when you have questions, email Todd or James. They'll make sure that you get what you need for the system and not any kind of fluff or overkill, because you don't need to order a whole, I'm expanding, so I need to buy another 1 keg basic kit. No, don't do that, because you probably don't need all those components. But trying to think of anything else on his system, and I'm glad he's enjoying the faucets. We've been getting a lot of feedback. Ep.229 seem to be real popular in our audience base, and I'm just real happy to hear that, because like I always push the V10s and I forget how solid a faucet the Ep.229 is. And I guess,
and you can almost buy 2 of those.
Exactly.
Or I definitely 2.
Do you have any V10s, Josh?
No, I don't. I don't have any V10s.
I thought you.
Yeah, so he's pushing them on you guys, but he's too cheap to buy 2 himself.
Whoa.
No, I
not
thought you do have X1s though, right? You have some X1s?
No, I don't. I have 2 V3S compact, and I have 2 V2Gs, because I haven't had a reason to. The V2Gs have been out of production for 4 years. 3 years, maybe? How long? It's been a while, James, since
5 years.
5 years since I've been making them. I have 2 of them that are working like a champ. And again, if I need to replace those, I'm going to get either Ep.229s, or I like the V10s because they're so pretty. They are pretty.
They are pretty.
Really
And
good faucet.
I hear that you can get a really good discount on them, Josh.
Did you hear that? Huh?
Yeah.
Well, for my dad's birthday, I didn't get him. I'm actually, he's going to listen to this before we see him on his birthday, so I'm not going to tell you. I didn't get him anything big though. I wanted to get him like a system or a fermenter, but we're at that point where my mom's going to kick me in the nuts if I buy more big stuff at the house without consulting her. So I haven't done that yet. Now,
when is he going to build his new building? You're going to put a brew room in there, I'm sure, right?
He said it was going to be a workshop. I think that translates to brew room. I'm not sure.
Brew room, workshop, same thing.
Same thing, yeah. Which you're going to be able to have 3 or 4 brew spaces soon, man. With like when you clear out your shop to be able to park the cars outside of it, you're going to have a lot of space.
Yeah, I could put those real tall ones like they have in the brewery. We could do a 20 barrel, 30 barrel system in there.
Hey, I'm all for that.
Yeah, I didn't say that's Homebrew Happy Hour version 3.0. 1.0 was before James. We don't talk about the BJ times, the before James. I have to clarify what I meant by that acronym or that abbreviation. And then after James, and then 3.0 will be the microbrewery. That's what we'll work on. The rant is ripe for up there, man. That I could just envision all those taints in there. That'll be nice. But anyways, Danny, thank you so much. And again, this is a great time to remind you, if and when we take your question on a future episode, we do give you a $25 gift card to Kegconnection.com. And we especially love the voicemail ones because we love hearing from y'all. Sometimes I think Todd thinks I make up the questions because we don't have listeners, and he thinks I just real quick type them up. And then I get this email out, and he's like, there's no way someone's named Danny. What? And then when I play the voicemail, I was like, oh, crap. Josh isn't good at impressions, so that must have been a real person. So moving on to question number 2 came from our friend Nate, who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. And Nate wrote, short and sweet, what the heck is a vorlauf, and why should I care? James, I'm asking you, what the heck is a vorlauf, and why should Nate care?
Well, vorlauf is basically you're running the wort out of the mash tun until it runs clear. So we had to do that a lot when we had that big gravity, I call Bertha, because when you first start your initial run into the boil pot, your first runnings or first wort, it's going to have some particulates and stuff you don't want to boil. And everybody wants as clear a wort as possible. So a vorlauf is basically we would run it into a gallon container, because I had a manifold with 2 valves. We'd shut the valve going to the boil pot and open the one going to the vorlauf bucket, and we would just let it run until it's clear. Shut that off, gently pour that back over the grain bed, and start my sparge. So it was a really easy way of not getting a bunch of trash in your boil kettle.
Now, is there a time that you wouldn't want to do a vorlauf, or not wouldn't want to, pardon me, that it wouldn't be necessary?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, it depends on the system you're brewing on. So
if you got
on our
recirculation,
herms,
you wouldn't.
It's kind of funny because vorlauf literally means, I think it means circulation in German, but we don't use it that way. We use it as clarification because recirculation is what we do, and we don't really call that a vorlauf. But we have a video where we do a vorlauf, right, James? The cooler brew. We did a vorlauf on that video, didn't we?
Yep, sure did.
You did, and that happens to be one of our most viewed videos on the channel. I think it's over like 90,000 now views. But
short question, short answer. I don't know why you'd care either. I brew on a herm system.
Well, so let's. But yeah, I don't want to beat the question to death. Like sometimes Todd, you accuse me of doing. But we would need more context, Nate, as to why you might care. Because when me and my dad do like y'all did on the Cooler Brew video, we do a vorlauf. We do the first runnings in the kettle.
Yeah.
We pour it back over. That establishes the grain bed because we're not doing recirculation. And then
right.
boom.
I would have a good answer to that. Maybe the reason why he might care about it is if you're doing batch sparging, you would probably want to do a vorlauf.
Good point. You're right. And again, it does depend on the system you're doing, because on the herms, like y'all said, it's not necessary. The grain bed's being established through the recirculation. It's keeping things even. And what you're getting out of the kettle, as we saw the other day, just clear as can be, right? Like it's the herms system does that work for you. Vorlauf, I guess it was a
so you want to do a vorlauf if you don't want a bunch of crap in your boil kettle.
Or to give you the best chance possible to not have it, right? Because obviously nothing's foolproof. I don't want to give that impression someone's going to do a vorlauf and go, "What the crap, guys? Like I stuck sparge or I had this or that." It's like, well, yeah. I mean, if we had to cover every variable that could happen on any given brew day, we couldn't do multiple shows. We'd have one long show every week where we just picked up from where we last talked about. Because there's just so, I mean, even in our brew days, the past couple of days, there's just so many variables, from the recipe bill itself to the batch size to the grains you're using to the way that they're crushed, the way they're crushed. Like there's just a ton of variables. But with more context, Nate, feel free to email me with more context if you are needing more information why you should care, because it's contextual. You might not need to care depending on your system. But a vorlauf, like Todd said, short question is short answer. It's the establishing of the grain beds from the first runnings of your wort. It's and we do have a video or a segment on it in the Cooler Brew. And if you just type in the old YouTubes,
we did there was a cartoon animated thing on it, right?
I don't remember.
Yeah,
that video
I think so.
No, I don't think that video got finished. And it wasn't my fault either. It wasn't my fault. There's a couple projects out there that are my fault, and there's a couple that aren't, and I like to talk about the couple that aren't my fault. Which, by the way, Todd didn't get to kick me in the balls. Did we already talk about that last week? We did, because I published the video for you, the part 2 of the extract. I think I mentioned
I saw that on, yeah.
It came out good, right? Y'all are, but I will say this. I like how our dynamic is when I film with each one of you, because in the old days, especially with Todd, this isn't derogatory towards you, Todd. We practiced a lot more than we do nowadays for a lot of these projects. Just as y'all are so, like with James yesterday, I was like, hey, we need to do a shot on a sparge. I was like, do you want to run through? You're like, no, I'm going to say. And then in one take, boom, we had our content. And same with Todd. Todd was dying yesterday. And
he was. I mean, we couldn't get him to go. Like, you need to go lay down, sir.
The antibiotics are just killing him from a different kind of infection. And he did the closing video stuff for us because you had to take off. And he turned it on. He went from like, oh, I'm dying. And then, hey, Todd Burns here. I was like, oh my gosh.
True professional right there.
Yeah, no kidding. All these years of practice paid off. I mean, we could have afforded to have a makeup person to help out because you were whiter than white. You were pale yesterday, but I touched it up in the editing software.
Well, and I'm feeling better. I took my last antibiotic this morning, and they're starting to wear off. I don't feel great, great, but I think by tomorrow I'll feel fine.
Todd had a mean internal infection, and it affected my trip because I had no one to drink with me, and I just felt like a lonely alcoholic out on the patio. I mean, it didn't bother me, but
You felt like me most nights on the patio.
Not that there's anything wrong with
it
that.
was actually very pleasant. Todd went to bed at like 8 p.m. and I went to the patio, and I crushed it, man. I crushed it. It was good. Old Speckled Hen. I forgot how good a beer that is. I had a couple of those. What are those German pills we were drinking? I can't pronounce the brewery. Warrenheifensteifen.
Yeah, it's one of those German words.
It's like Worcester.
Very hard to pronounce.
It's like Worcester.
It starts with a W and ends with an N.
Yeah, it's like in the last word, like the last part's Stefan or Stefan.
Yeah.
I had a bunch of those. They're just so smooth. Anyways, Nate, I think that wraps up his question. I was starting to digress, so that's always a good time to thank you, Nate, for submitting your question. Moving on to question number 3, came from our friend Isaac, who also used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Isaac wrote, I'm building my first keezer. I have decided to use MFL fittings for the gas lines. Should I use MFL fittings for the liquid lines as well? Is there a difference using MFL disconnects as opposed to barb disconnects? This was the question I was talking about that kind of ties into Danny's in regards to how everything's expandable on a draft system for the most part, or upgradable. I'm going to start this off, and I'll kick it to Todd since he's kind of our draft expert here.
Yep.
I would always recommend MFL because it makes life easier, especially if you're ever going to be switching same lines over to different kegs or different coupler types like ball lock, pin lock, or a Sainty or whatever kind of commercial coupler. It just makes life easier having MFL on there because you're able to get a connection for whatever solution you need and just screw it on. It's very straightforward. But Todd, did I miss anything, or what would you say to Isaac about using MFL versus barbed?
No, I mean, I always use MFL. I know kind of the thing right now is the quick disconnect. I personally prefer MFL because it's metal to metal. I know I got a good solid fitting. I don't have to worry about it. And it's got really good flow too. You don't lose any flow because of the drop down that happens a lot of times with those. So, barb has excellent flow as well. So, MFL to me is the way to go. I really like it because it makes it so easy to take everything apart clean, put back together. Again, very, as you said, very quick and easy.
And you're talking about those John Guest is what you're talking about. And they're rebranded now. So you guys are old enough to remember the John Guest.
Well, John Guest is very big in Europe. Yeah.
It has been forever. And I think Kedland out of Australia kind of rebranded them. I think they call them duotights now. And it's because I'll get an email every now and then like, do you carry duotights? And a couple years ago, I was like, what the heck's a duotite? And looked it up and like, oh, that's a John Guest fitting. I think it's the exact same thing, but I have no experience with them except I know traditionally I've read that they don't hold up well with sanitizers. Like a lot of sanitizers for some reason mess them up. So some people are like, oh, I don't sanitize it. And then I'm like, that doesn't seem like a good policy to not sanitize a connection that beer line's going to be coming, or beer liquid is going to be coming through. Like you want all that stuff to be pretty sanitary, in my opinion. But I say that the beer's not going to get infected between the connection. When you pour it, it's not going to hit that connection, go sour into your glass. So that's probably why it's not that big a deal. It just seems weird that most sanitizers corrupt them, and I might have to edit that out because I'm not trying to get libeled or say libeled. That's what I've read on the Reddit and the internets. Okay, that those John Guests sometimes don't hold up well. And
I think MFL it's the way to go. I prefer MFL, and very few circumstances would I use a barb instead.
Yeah, and I guess sometimes we've run into availability issues, and on both ends. Remember, we've done promos where we're like, "Hey, we're going to do a free upgrade to MFL just because they were more readily available," from our friends over at cmbecker.com. But I always recommend it too. And this is not the question, but I will say, used to people would follow this up with a ball lock or pin lock. I've become so partial now to the short pin lock disconnects, MFL on a pin lock keg. It gives so much clearance in a keezer. And I know Isaac didn't ask that question, but I've been dying to start using my pin locks more because I forgot how much clearance you can get in a standard like dorm fridge that we use for our Kegerators with those short pin lock disconnects. They're great.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, they are. Yeah.
They're wonderful. But anyways, Isaac, thank you so much for submitting your question. Oh, wait. Is there a difference between using the the difference is just the ease of use because you're adding the barb. What you're doing with the MFL is screwing on a barb as opposed to the barb being built in. So it's just more future-proof for you. And there is a tiny bit of price difference, but it's pretty negligible, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to cover everything in his question because I have.
Yeah, you have to have a swivel. You have to add a swivel nut, so it adds a couple bucks. But again, I think it's well worth it. It's certainly not necessary. I mean, barbs work fine, and you can have your whole system on barbs and never look back. It's a personal preference.
It is a personal preference, and that's the best way to put it. So thank you, Isaac, for submitting your question. Moving on, we've got one final question for this week's episode. Came from Matt, who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Matt wrote, "Hi, Joshua and friends. I want to make the leap to all grain brewing soon. I'm trying to learn the importance of recirculation and when it is necessary. I'm eyeballing the cooler brew system, which doesn't appear to come with the way to use recirculation, so I'm assuming it isn't always necessary when all grain brewing." This is kind of like the vorlauf question in regards to and even the last question. Man, sometimes on this show I feel like we can just go, it's personal preference, and then cue the music.
It is very similar to the vorlauf question.
It is.
I'm not sure it's that similar to the number 3, but yeah, it's definitely similar to the
I just
vorlauf.
The answer of number 3 was like, it kind of boils down to personal preference. Where on the cooler brew, I've seen people on my dad and I use the cooler brew more times than not, and we use gravity to get to each vessel, right? From our hot liquor tank, we have it up on this high. If you're watching the video, you see me. If you're only audio, which is the majority of our listeners, we have 3 tiers, and the top tier is our hot liquor tank, the middle tier is our mash tun, and the bottom floor level tier, basically floor level, is our boil kettle. And we use gravity. We don't use recirculation, although you can. I've seen people use very affordable pumps to do recirculation in their mash tun, and people swear by it that way, but it isn't necessary. My dad and I have had great sparges, and we've had great batches end up from doing it gravity fed. But what would you say, James, is recirculation, if he's going to get the cooler brew, which we all agree is a fantastic system, should he worry about recirculation?
It's not really possible with a cooler brew because you don't have a heat source. So if you're recirculating, you're losing heat. With the cooler brew, you're going to have to do batch sparging, and then you're just going to have to set it and forget it. It's the whole purpose of the cooler. It'll maintain temperature within a degree for that 1 hour mash time. So you want to have your correct amount of water. Remember, we do the strike temp, so we have a hotter temperature in the water as we introduce the grains. We talked about that on the video. We want to settle out your target mash temperature, put the lid on it, set your timer, and of course stir it, and then just let it do its thing. So when it gets time to get the sugars and get the wort out, well, then you would have more water heated up in your hot liquor tank, and then you would drain into a boil kettle, what you have in the cooler, as you're putting more. Or like Todd likes to do, and it works real good, get 2/3 of that out and then add the warmer water into the grain bed. So you hit your 170 degree or 168 to 170 degree water. That stops the starch conversion, gets you to temp quicker, and then you can continue for the rest of the sparge. Works good.
That's right. I totally misspoke. I was thinking of the mash and boil when I thought of how you can add recirculation. Yeah, the cooler brew,
it's got an element at the
because
bottom,
it has the element at the bottom. In a cooler system, you can't. You need heat. That's the whole point of the recirculation. It's not just to,
so it'll hold that heat in there for a solid hour. We proved
it's amazing. I've never seen anything like it on that video. We thought our thermometer was broken. It was so close, right, James?
Well, I do like.
Incidentally, that happens to be to this day, one of the best homebrew beers I have ever had.
We can't talk about it enough. I know I said the lemon
amazing.
drop ESP earlier. Just drop the lemon part and just do the ESP, guys. Could you please? We should do a triple brew day next time I'm up there. We'll do it on the cooler brew because I think you need the cooler brew to replicate it, Todd. Whatever y'all did that day. I do like on that video for the cooler brew how genuinely surprised y'all were on the video when the temperature, because I think James said, "Look at that," and Todd, you're like, "No, he didn't grab his hand."
That
to
was
see the
genuine
thermometer.
too, because we didn't. That was the first time we filmed that.
Yeah, no, that was a fun brew day because I think that was the same day Joe and I tested the prototype foundry.
It is,
yep. And which, speaking of all-in-ones, one of my favorite ones, one of the hardest ones to get. It's basically like freaking lumber these days, or whatever is scarce and expensive. The foundry's in high demand lately, and the supply is low. But
yeah, they're very hard to get. There's a backlog. I think it'll get caught up eventually. So.
Oh, it will. But I'll tell you what is in stock: the cooler brew. We can push those.
It works. You know what? It works really good. I mean, I prefer to brew on that system than I do the all-in-ones. I know y'all like the all-in-ones as well, but I like brewing on the cooler brew. It's just so simple and fast, and it just works so well.
Yeah, and again, that's a whole other episode, and we've done other episodes like that where that's the ultimate personal preference and having to fit your life. If you have the space for brewing outside or safely indoors on a cooler setup, and you want to do 10-gallon batches, the cooler brew, bar none, the best solution in my opinion.
Yeah, there's nothing simpler for a really good batch of beer than a cooler brew.
Exactly.
And not to mention the fact, the sense of accomplishment you get, because there's maybe a little bit more work involved. It almost feels more like a hands-on brewing experience with the cooler brew, which I personally like. And it's just a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. And I know like a lot of people, I'm projecting I romanticize brewing. And the more like when I brewed up by myself, even on the 3-vessel, which it was very easy. I felt like I was brewing, but I also was like, this is way easier than I ever thought it could be or should be on this system. But I romanticized the whole brewing process, like where the more involved I am, the more I feel like I'm a brewer. I'm doing it. And the cooler brew definitely fulfills that for me, where, all brewing, I just like brewing. And especially because I brew with my pop, I like more of what we're doing on brew day than necessarily just the brewing part. But the cooler brew is a super fun. Like I almost always recommend that to be everyone's first experience with all grain brewing, if possible, just because they understand the process. Like Todd was pushing me.
It does show you the process.
It shows you the process. That's why you were pushing me on the 3-vessel, because I've been present when y'all brew on it. I have to use my words wisely. I've never brewed on it. I wouldn't even say I've helped y'all brew on it. I've observed y'all brew on it. I've made jokes in the area. I've kind of been like, hey, I'm here. And I've scrubbed kettles after y'all were done brewing. But actually now brewing on it and brewing pretty much by myself. Y'all were there to provide some aid.
No, you brewed by yourself.
No,
you did.
I appreciate it. But
you did a damn good job too.
I appreciate that. I'm gonna say
just don't try to attach a hose with a valve open.
James is not a good idea. Burn my hand. James was okay. Yeah, let's tell that story real quick before. Thank you, Matt, for submitting your question. We're wrapping up the show now. I had the. What did I mix up? Like the outlet.
You were fixing to go into the sparge.
That's what I was doing. So I had a valve open on the kettle that I forgot to close. So when I removed the line from the pump to switch it over for the sparge, obviously that hot water is just coming out. And so I was like, oh, I'll just put this back on. And I get my clumpy hand and I go down there and I can't get it on. And that hot water, what was the temperature? Like 160?
It was 170 degrees because it was sparge.
Oh, it's getting ready for sparge. And it's just all over my hand. And James is sitting there mortified. And he was like, you should shut it off at the valve. I was like, oh yeah. And then it stopped. And he's like, Todd, he burned his hand. I know he did. And my hand's just all red. And you were like,
I know you did.
I know I did too. It hurt afterwards. But at the time, you were like, do you even feel on your hand? How, like, most people get the burning.
Yeah, you didn't do a dance. You didn't make a face. You just moved your hand away. and said,
I want you to-
"Oh,
But
what
it
do I
took
do?"
a while before you moved your hand away.
I did.
Yeah.
I want y'all to think I'm tough, I guess. I don't know, man. My hands, I think jujitsu is killing my extremities. My feet, like right now, I'm barefoot. They're white as can be. I don't think I have blood going there. My hands are just clumpy. Look at my ear. This is what my wife hates. Look how clumpy my ear is. Jiu-jitsu is killing me. But it's a great sport, everyone. Y'all should do it. Anyways, that does it for this week's episode.
Well, no, I have more.
For this question?
No. I thought you were saying the thing was over. I want to talk about one more thing.
Oh, take the floor, man.
Okay, so we're very excited about our new experiment that we're doing right now, and we'll talk about whose hops it is soon. But we have 7 different hops that are proprietary hops that we've been brewing with, and we actually brewed 2 batches this week. Joe brewed a batch a couple weeks ago. We have 4 more to go. It's taken us a lot longer than we thought it would to do this, but we kind of didn't have a brewing system available for a while because we were switching everything over. We're going to try to get the other 4 done as quickly as possible, and then we're going to do some comparisons. In fact, we might do like a special, we do the tasting. What do we call that again, Josh?
Wait, the Kolsch Cup one, or what do you mean? Like
No. The
Recipe recap.
Recipe recap.
We didn't film any this last week. I was up there either. Anyway.
Well, yeah, you promised me you'd release one every week.
Anyways,
so that's
you were saying
an issue.
You were saying something important. Keep going.
Okay, so maybe we'll do, instead of a recipe recap, we'll do a special podcast like that, and we'll taste these 7 beers all together and talk about what we're tasting. And I think it'll be a lot of fun to actually. So I didn't really give total background, but we did a very. We used the same base recipe with all 7, and we're primarily doing flavor and aroma, whirlpool type hops. And I think it'll be really neat to evaluate these 7 different hops all together with using exactly the same recipe. I'm really excited about it.
It was an American Pale Ale, and I think Lorena came up with the recipe for us.
She did.
Yeah.
Gosh,
so we used the same bittering hop,
yes,
and which was Magnum.
Yep.
And not a lot of it, and then so it'll have the same bittering, which doesn't add a lot of flavor, and then we'll do these as the flavor / aroma hops.
I'm excited. I'm excited. I am. We have to. I don't know if I should preface this, or y'all already know. I left out the specialty grains in my batch. Todd found
That's all right. I mashed all in alpha yesterday because I forgot to turn down HLD.
Yeah, so the recipe's not going to be exactly the same because of these 2 clowns, but
Todd!
No.
The look on his face was priceless when he was looking for something for the other kit, and he lifts up the bag that I thought I got all the grains out of, and he goes, Josh, what the hell is this? And it was a bag. Well, go ahead.
Well, no, I should probably mention that the reason his batch got messed up was actually my fault, but we're not going to go into any details on that.
No, I was the one brewing.
Well, was it your fault that? Was it your fault that my batch was?
Yes, because I asked you if you'd gotten all the grains out of the bag, and you said yes, and I didn't double check that.
Oh, so
that's really my fault. Yeah.
He actually went and grabbed that other bag to pour in.
Oh, I know.
I did stop him when he started to pour in the bag for the batch beer the next day. So we were going to have 60 pounds of grain in there.
The instructions were go get the grains, and the 2 bags were right there. And I was like, what is it? And you go, they're all the same. I need more context. As you know, sometimes you think I'm being a troll to you and I'm trying to get under your skin when I ask, like, hey, what do you mean by this? And you're like, oh, are you an idiot? You should know what I mean by this. Banging your chest like Godzilla. or not Godzilla, like King Kong. Godzilla's the lizard.
See, I know I got under your skin that day. I'm sorry if I was rude to you that day. I apologize.
You were sick. It's whatever.
Yeah.
I've been on monster.com all day. It's okay. But anyway, that's a job posting site if you didn't get my reference. But anyway,
I did.
Yeah, I did. I did. Hence the awkward silence. Anyways, guys, thank y'all so much. Be on the lookout. We did get a lot of content done. Unfortunately, most of the content's waiting for the launch of other projects, but we have a lot of fun stuff down the pipeline that we are excited to share with you all. So stay tuned. Yeah. You can always follow us on social media, or obviously the podcast is probably the best way for us to get the information out. I need to remind everyone, by the time you're listening to this, if it's Friday at all, and you want to save, there's a site-wide site-wide sale at kegconnection.com, 15% off site-wide. That's on everything except for map-priced items like things where the dealers don't let us give discounts, like the Grainfather, spiked stuff. But all the other things, keg kits and recipes and a lot of other equipment from other vendors, all at 15% off. We want May to be your best brewing ever before it gets too hot and people are like, oh, I don't want to brew. No, we want y'all to brew and we want y'all to drink beer. So guys, thank y'all so much for y'all's time this week. I appreciate it. I will, I'll catch y'all next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
See you.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, you can go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on the submit a question link at the top of the page. Or now you can go, now you can call or text it into 325-305-6107. Thank you to our show sponsor, 10tackers.com, for supporting us and the homebrewing community. Go to 10tackers.com right now. Use our promo code HOMEBREWER and you'll get $10 off your first purchase of $30 or more. They're great. I promise you, we have so many of these things. You're going to love it. That's 10tackers.com, promo code HOMEBREWER. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.